Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly series of Shirim, the Torah of Recovery with the Light Revealed, where we try and illuminate the path of recovery with the light of the Torah and to draw out the light of recovery from within the Torah itself, to reveal that ultimately the Torah is the Sam HaChaim, it is the drug of life, it is there to give a person life. Lulei sarascha sha'ashuai azavadeti bioni. The Torah is a healing thing, the Torah is a medicinal thing, the Torah is there to be mamtik the mar. The Torah is there to take all of the difficulty in a person's life and allow them to see it in a new light that shows them how the difficulty itself, or the apparent difficulty itself, is there just to be a vessel to reveal more light. The full culmination of the Torah of Atika Stima, the ancient Torah that's going to be revealed with the arrival of Mashiach Tzidkenu in our personal life and our collective lives, is the revelation of Samchenu Kiyemois Anisanu, that gladden us like the days of our affliction. And as the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Latzato, Schusia Godolenu, a tzaddik who is holding by the pulsational point of redemption in all of its facets, he teaches that this pasuk is a fundamental description of the nature of redemption. It's samchenu ki sanu in the sense that in accordance with the sense of affliction that we experience in the day-to-day, moment-to-moment process of exile, revelation of redemption is going to be the ability to look back on each and every single one of those moments and to reveal how not only were those moments part and parcel of Hashem's plan as well, but rather each and every one of those moments is in and of itself the necessary vessel to bring about the full and complete redemption of the individual as well as the collective expression of that particular soul. That every experience that a person has in this world, after it has happened, when we find ourselves unable to change our orientation towards that moment, when we feel stuck in whatever it is that the conditions of life have led us to, in those moments, what Mashiach is going to do is going to allow us to look back on our lives and see it with eyes of illumination, to reveal how each and every one of those pockets of difficulty were a preparatory stage of revealing an intensity of yichud that could not be revealed in any way other than concealment due to the richness of its revelation. Things that are revealed in a good way, that's a goodness that can be tolerated in this world, and it doesn't undo the playing field of Bechira, because the goodness doesn't reveal in front of our eyes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs everything from beginning, middle, and end with no deviation whatsoever. It's the big things, the true goodness, that is unable to be revealed in this world, because the revelation of that goodness would reveal the gig, which is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only thing that exists, and the beginning, the middle, and the end are fully connected to one another. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can only reveal that by way of concealment, referred to as the Or HaGanuz. That's the Chesed HaGanuz. We know that Choy Katoiv Lahetiv, we know that all HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to do is bestow good, but there's certain moments where that goodness is not revealed, and our Ikar Avoida and the job of desiring redemption through hope, through picking ourselves up out of the struggle, is the desire to draw down Hashem's ultimate goodness, which is independent of our perception. It can apply when it's good in a revealed way, or it could apply when it's good in a concealed way. And we want to draw it down into a toiv hanira v'hanigla, a clear and apparent goodness that is lamata me'asar tvachim, that doesn't take even emuna to believe in its goodness. I want to see the goodness explicit in front of my eyes. Yes, that might take a reorientation towards what the nature of goodness is, but the goodness must be revealed. That's the secret of Geula. That's the Yavo Tov, V'Yigail Tov, that the goodness of Mashiach Tzidkenu, who's the Shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Or Ki Tov, to redeem the goodness of the Jewish people in a level of Tov Hanira V'Hanigla. And the more we encounter and the more we're aware of those pockets in our life that appear to be devoid of goodness, the struggles, the ups and the downs, the et cetera, the et cetera, the et cetera of each and every person's life, each person knows what goes on in their lives that are those processes that are devoid of light, in need of fulfillment. And redemption, or redemptive consciousness, is the recognition that Samchenu Kimois Anisanu, each and every one of these moments were in truth the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, albeit in a concealed way. And then I come to be amazed and surprised over and over how not only is Hashem revealed in the ease of things, but Hashem was there in the difficulty of things as well. And the difficulty is revealed to have been the Shalhuvin Derechimnu, the flames of love and attachment and connectivity and desire and intensification and the propagation of self to move forwards, that are built upon the Gevuros themselves, the engine of the Gevura, the engine of those difficult moments that are revealed to have been the place of Hashem's ultimate goodness, of Toiv Amiti, Lamata Me'asar Tvachim, that drives and it serves as the engine to perpetuate our desire for more goodness, more more goodness, never to be satisfied with the goodness that is revealed, but always to be fundamentally aware that the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is never fully revealed, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinitely removed from our capacity of grasping him in the secret of Kedushasi L'mala Mikdushasechem, but nevertheless, that doesn't diminish the level of goodness. So it's the paradox of everything is Toiv Hanira V'Hanigla through the perspective of Geula, but that Toiv Hanira V'Hanigla, that apparent goodness, is not something that exhausts or gets rid of all possibility of more goodness. It's good that leaves room for more good, in spite of the fact that the good that I'm experiencing now doesn't feel like it's deficient, but there is that innermost point of desire for the infinite level of goodness, where the soul recognizes that whatever I'm tasting is never the full thing, which drives a person for more without taking a person away from the ability of being present and feeling the moment itself. Now, we find this process fundamentally so in a life of recovery from any difficulty that a person is experiencing, in the psychological process of refinement from the difficult stages of a person's mind into a place of comfort, from a moment of anxiety into a moment of calm, from a moment of doubt into a moment of trust, from a moment of pain into a moment of comfort, from sadness into joy, from anger into calmness. All of these moments are the transformation of difficulty into the light of redemption, and therefore all of the hismoidedus and the contemplation and the encounter that we have with ourself in the burgeoning process and the buzzing nature of the self in its emergence, every ounce of self-awareness is leading towards more and more bittul, where I come to realize that it's been you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's been driving the car all along, and that I was just playing around with a toy steering wheel, sillily thinking that I was in charge and that I was driving. And when I come to that recognition, I'm able to slacken my grip on this worldliness with the light of acceptance, which is the expression of the tefach soifech, the tefach soichek, in contradistinction to the tefach oitziv. As the Baal Tanya says, there's two ways of measuring a tefach. The tefach is measured by the width of the hand. A tefach oitzev is a shortened tefach, which is measured in accordance with the hand when there's no revach, when there's no space between the fingers. Atzvus is when there is a containment, when there is a claustrophobia and everything is folded in upon itself, which also reflects itself in the attempt at grasping and seizing power with the strength of my hand. But there's a tefach soichek, which is a measurement of the fingers when there's space and air revealed between the fingers, where there's a sense of breath, there's a ruach that emanates through all things, poking holes in the seriousness and revealing that it's all too seriously to take seriously, and we have to learn the secret of not taking ourselves too seriously, which is the secret of the sha'ashua and the amuna and the simcha that comes about when I stop looking so much at the darkness and I begin to look at the goodness that I believe rests at the heart of the darkness itself, to reveal that secret of samchenu ki moisa nisanu. And we see this profoundly in this week's parsha. There was nobody like Bilam. Bilam was the apex of negativity. Bilam was as big as it gets in terms of concealment. Bilam was a das of klipa. Bilam had all of the external positionings of comfort and calmness and hashra'ah and spirituality and connectivity and meaning on the level almost as if he was like Moshe. We know that Chazal say that there's nobody amongst the Jewish nation like Moshe, but amongst the nations of the world, there is somebody who seemingly contains that strength of Moshe, and that's Bilam, meaning to say that Bilam is the hither side of awareness, which is an awareness that is rooted in negativity, an awareness that tries to create a sense of separation between the apparent negativity and the goodness that will come about later on. The negativity and the goodness that will come later on. Bilam wants to make a chiluk between the two of them. Bilam says there's good and there's bad, and there's a full and separate nature to them, and the bad can be isolated, God forbid, and it can be seen and understood as being something that is devoid of goodness. And that's the secret of Bilam's koach. Bilam's koach is that he taps into that place where it appears for a moment that the bad and that which appears negative is not endowed and saturated with a hidden source of goodness that rests at the very center of it, waiting to be revealed in the process of redemption. This is how Bilam Harasha was able to curse the Jewish people, or theoretically curse the Jewish people, because Das of Moshe is the recognition of a connection between above and below, between Chesed and Gvura, between that which appears connected and that which appears disconnected. Das is the chibur between the two of them. Das de Kedusha recognizes that in spite of the fact that there appears to be a split nature of reality in this world, nevertheless, I'm fundamentally aware that it's unified. Das de Klipa, on the other hand, which is Bilam Harasha, which is the opposite of the face, but rather the backside of the neck, like Paro. So Bilam represents the Das de Klipa, which is that there's two types of things. There's Chesed and Gvura, there's good and bad, and depending on the moment, I can either turn to one side or the other. And so Bilam Harasha tried to show how the negativity in a person's life, the struggle of a person's life, the negative points in a person's life are standalone moments that are real, and that there's no goodness inherent in them, and that there's no light to be revealed within them. And it forces a person through that mindset to, God forbid, look at the negativity, look at the yemois anisanu as if they operate in a standalone fashion. And that is the koach to be mevatel yishuv hadas. That notion that there's something that is ultimately not good in this world, that doesn't have the end. Good here is defined by the animating light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinitude, which is resting at the core of it, ensuring that things always, 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 always move forward towards their final destination, move forward towards the tachlis and the tachlis of the tachlis, and the Vayechulu Hashemayim Ha'aretz V'chol Tzva'am, and that the purpose of creation itself is that creation find its way towards its final destination, which is via Mashiach, which is the Gilui that there is no final destination because there's an infinite distance between creation and God, and the secret of Kedushasi L'malam Kedushasechem, but it's the revelation that everything has a tachlis. There's nothing that is devoid of a tachlis. Even that which appears negative is the secret of a goodness that is not yet ready to be revealed. Now, that doesn't have an impact on how a person is mismoided and how a person grapples with negativity, but it does give a person the comfort of knowing that negativity is not absolute, and that negativity is not something that stands devoid of an animating light. That's the tikkun of das, keneged the klipa of Bilam. And that's why we see something so unique about Bilam in the story of Bilam. It's not enough. It's not enough that Bilam cursed the Jewish people and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu take away the curse of Bilam. It's not enough for there to be an apparent negative expression of Bilam and then erasure of that negativity. Because what that would do is lead us back into the same trap that Bilam was creating, which is that there's a distinction between good and bad on the absolute baseline level of the awareness of the emergence of things into the tachlis arotzi of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. Because if Bilam had cursed and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to take away that curse of Bilam, so then it would have still been operating within a system of attunis, of a splitness, of the relationship of das that appears to be tov and ra. But the secret of Bilam's klala is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forced the bracha to come out of the curse that Bilam wanted to give, meaning to say that the very desire to curse, the very yemois anisanu, the difficulty itself, in and of itself becomes the vehicle that reveals that it is good. It's not enough for Bilam to curse and Moshe to undo, or Hashem to undo. It needs to come about from the mouth of the serpent itself. It has to be an ishafcha sachoishech leor. It has to be a transformation of mariru lemasiku. The gvuros themselves have to be revealed to be the very site of simcha and oineg and shuin da'iraisa. Yes, the avada, the tachlis, is always to come to a place of toiv hanira v'hanigla, but Bilam harasha represents the secret that the bracha itself is emergent from the klala itself, that the forest itself gives birth to the handle for the axe, and it's the bitter tree itself that sweetens the bitter water, and it's the leaf of the tree of the Eitz Hadas that covers over Adam Harishon as a result of the Eitz Hadas, and it is the nachash and the that's mevatel the koyach of the nachash, and it's the shirish of tzimtzum that's mevatel tzimtzum itself, and it's tzachti Mitzrayim b'Mitzrayim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu undoes the concealment of Mitzrayim, which are the gevuros, through the shoresh HaGevuros themselves, the secret of Hamtakas Adinim b'Sharashim. The biggest nace is when the difficulty itself is revealed to be the seat of blessing, where the malach ra, where the negative angel comes home on a Friday night and sees a house that's filled with the light of Shabbos, and that malach ra is against its own will forced to express amen. That the negative side also has to admit that the difficulties of a person's life have to also be seen through a lens of ease and through a lens of menucha, with that revelation that everything, b'li yotzim and aklal, that has been part and parcel of the unfolding Sipur Maisios of my life, all of it can be seen through the lens of a narrative reshifting that sees it as good. It doesn't mean forgiving everything that needs to be dealt with. It doesn't mean forgetting things that need to be remembered. It means seeing the general framework of goodness that surrounds everything in the secret of Soviv Kalaman in a way that even if I'm not aware of it, it's still happening. And that's what's happening by Klalas Bilam, that by Klalas Bilam, the bracha emerges itself, that the Shoresh HaNachash has to be the one who gives over the bracha in the secret of the Malach Ra Yomer Amen, that the negative side, the opposite side of separation and distortion, is in and of itself being forced to be made and testify to the unity. And when we come to live our lives like this, then our experiences are no longer seen through lenses of regret, in spite of the fact that we not necessarily want to continue doing them. our lives and the struggles and the ups and the downs and the times where we felt distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or distant from serenity, or different from mindfulness, were in truth stepping stones upon which I led myself to mindfulness, thereby revealing how every step of the way which felt distant from the goal was in truth necessary in terms of getting to the goal. And when the process is illuminated with the reflection of the goal itself, so then we come to realize that the derech itself was the goal. And we know this now, and we could come to be aware of it here and now. And that's why when a person is experiencing Birchas Kohanim. In Birchas Kohanim, there's a special thing that a person spends time davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the negative dreams that we've experienced been fixed. Nobody wants bad dreams. Nobody wants nightmares. Nobody wants to live with an anticipatory sense of dread based on some semblance of an awareness of what might happen in the future, the mysterious and fluid world of Chalomos. And in Birchas Kohanim, in the illumination of creativity, in the light of the Kesser that the Kohanim are mashpia down onto the Am, we have the ability also of uncovering the vestiges of Emunah within ourselves and Nevuah within ourselves, and we have the ability to become the ones who interpret our dreams Latova. And over there, the same mechanism is working. We don't want to undo the negative dream. We don't want to undo the tendency towards not knowing how to live with faith, because it's that very tendency which becomes the ground that's going to be illuminated afterwards when I realize that that was also a process towards faith. And the katnus was also part and parcel of the godless. It revealed itself by way of katnus, fine. That doesn't take away the very fact that it was a godless as well. And ultimately, this secret of the Tikkun HaChalomos, which takes place by Birchas Kohanim, is rooted in this very secret of Bilam, when we say, Keshem shahafachta es klalos Bilam harasha lebracha, kein tapo chalai chaloimi letoiva, that just as you have transformed, just as you have taken the very recipe and ingredients of the negativity of Bilam and transformed it in and of itself into a bracha, so too take the negative framework of the dream and transform the dream itself into the bracha. Because when a person comes to understand that the difficulty itself is the same material of the goodness that will emerge afterwards, so then we stop trying to cut away the negative elements of our experience from our lives, and we start to accept HaKadosh Baruch Hu there, and we draw down the light of Hashem to illuminate the darkness, so that we can then bring that darkness and refine it and get out of it, but never with a sense of regret, as if those time periods of distance from God, or those time periods of distance from faith, or those time periods of loss of Yishuv Hadas, or those struggles in the mind are something other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's also part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the secret of Bilam HaRasha, that Bilam HaRasha himself is being forced to acknowledge to the blessings that the Jewish people deserve. And what was the koach that Bilam HaRasha had to give this curse? What was his ability? Does Hashem really get angry? Bilam HaRasha was able to have a specific mind orientation to the moment in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to be angry, as Chazal say. And it was in that moment, in that rega ba'apo chaim bertzono, Bilam had the ability to speak to that point of Gevura, Yesera by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever that means, at a point where Hashem is looking down on the world, Kaviyachol, with eyes of severity. And Bilam, through Das Klipa, had the ability of being mechavein, attuning himself to that place, which is not a surprise. Impurity breeds spiritual grasp as well, because spirituality is a real thing. It doesn't necessarily mean it's being done the right way, simply because a person is experiencing it. The path is as fundamental as the goal itself when it comes to spirituality. And therefore, it's not a surprise that Bilam had a Das Klipa. A person can eat fingernails or drink Nagelwasser water, God forbid, and also can kind of be somebody who comes to understand those processes. And it's this rega, it's this moment of rega ba'apo chaim bertzono, where it appears to be a time where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not showing his chen upon the Jewish people in a revealed way, God forbid. That was the das the klipa that Bilam HaRasha had the ability to be machavin to. And so the Gemara says Bilam HaRasha was able to tap into that moment of rega ba'apo, that moment where HaKadosh Baruch Hu seems angry, Kavyachol. And then only afterwards, Chaim Bertzono is revealed, and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu has always loved the Jewish people, even in the moments that appear to be angry. But it's specifically that moment that Bilam HaRasha had the ability to be machavin to. And the Balei Tosfos, the defenders of Klal Yisrael, they say, how is it possible that Bilam HaRasha was able to curse them? What did he think he would be able to accomplish? What did he think he would be able to accomplish in just a moment? If there's simply one moment in time that a person is able to draw negativity into the world and recreate this notion of the separation between good and evil, and deny the inner unity and the secret of Hein Am Levadad Yishkan, and the secret of Badad, and that secret of Atik and Keser that's Mechaber, everything together, what did he expect to do? So Tosfos have two answers. Tosfos, on the one hand, say it could be that if a person attaches themselves to a specific time period, even though that time period ends, if they began there, anything that continues afterwards will still retroactively be considered as having maintained the power of that time period. So it could be that he started the process of thinking negatively and cursing Klal Yisrael, and then it extended. And then Tosfos have a different opinion, and they say that maybe it was just one word that Bilam HaRasha was going to say in the time of that moment, which was kilem, destroy them. Kilem. Chaf Lam and Mem, Kilem, destroy them completely. And so in terms of how we're understanding this in terms of Avodas HaNefesh, in that moment where there's anger unleashed upon the world in a person's mind, in that moment of the Hisairus of Af, where there's frustration, resentment, disquietude, all of the different words and synonyms that operate in the gradual process of the world of anger, God forbid, in the world of hopelessness, in the world of all of those tendencies. So there's a moment where if a person attaches themselves to that mindset, they can, God forbid, draw down the thinking process that says there's negativity in the world, and that negativity is devoid completely of meaning, and that negativity is devoid completely of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is a kfira gemura, and it leads a person to a yeyush if they believe even for a second that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not hidden within the hiddenness that they encounter. And ba'afilu b'hastara shebetoich hastara bevadai sham nimsa Hashem yisparach. As Rabbi Nachman makes fundamentally clear, as the Kamarna Rebbe makes fundamentally clear, as every tzaddik who ever wrote a word of Torah is in one way or the other making fundamentally clear that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above and below, in the good, in the apparent bad, in the presence and the absence, both fundamentally serve at the unified power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. That is Pnimius HaTorah, that there is no separation. And once a person has that mindset, then we can descend down into all of the apparent separations in order to bring out the inherent unity that rests in the separation itself. And yes, Avada, there's two different brachos nowadays. There's Baruch Dayan Emes and Baruch HaToiv HaMeitiv. There's that two mindset, that two study mindset, that way of looking in the world that sees good and bad. But that's because we're human beings, and that's how we experience reality, and that's how Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to experience reality in accordance with our emuna, our bitachon, our yishav hadas, and our nachama. But ultimately, in the heart of all things, there's a Toiv HaMeitiv, and even the Dayan Emes is nichlal in the Toiv HaMeitiv, and it's going to be revealed in the future that it's Hashem Echad, and we know that Kol Haroi Lebila Ein Bila Ma'akevesbo. If something is going to be revealed in the future, then even though it's not revealed right now, but the conditions are available for it to be revealed right now, it just happens to not be revealed. Nevertheless, there's still an element of that light. So there's an inner unity. There's, as Rav Hutner said, following certain lines of the Chazon Ish. I'm sorry, it was just the Chazon Ish who said this. The Chazon Ish, Schusa Yogan Aleinu. Chazon Ish is Ein Shum Yeyosh, the vision of Ein Shum Yeyosh. The Chazon Ish's writings on Emunah Bitachon, the Chazon Ish's writings in Igro's Chazon Ish, the Chazon Ish's approach to Torah, all of the elements of the Chazon Ish are Ein Shum Yeyosh. And there's a secret, and there's a whisper that there was a certain hiskashrus to the light of Rabbi Nachman by the Chazon Ish, and Avada there was a hiskashrus to the light of the Balasulam by the Chazon Ish, and the Or HaTorah rested with the Chazon Ish. And the Chazon Ish has a particular thing to say, and the Chazon Ish says that Ein Shum Eitziv Ba'olam L'misha Makirs Or HaOros. There's no sadness in the world to one who sees the light of lights. What does it mean, the light of lights? What does it mean to behold the light of lights? And Rav Hutner Schus Yogan Aleinu explained this letter from the Chazon Ish as follows. He loved the Chazon Ish. He quotes the Chazon Ish about the process of suffering and what it means to be a human being in this world and self-refinement in this world. And the Rav Hutner says that it could be that Ein Shum Eitzav Ba'olam Misha Makers Oyres, that right now we live with two lights. We live with a light of negativity, and we live with a light of positivity. We live with a life of klala, and we live with a perspective of bracha, Toiva HaMeitiv and Dayan Emes. But in truth, there's a singular light that rests at the core of both of them, which is HaToiv HaAmiti, HaToiv, the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Choik HaToiv Lehetiv, that is Megala itself in the Toiv HaNigla VaHanira Lamata Me'asar Tfachim Mamish, the ultimate desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bestow goodness, but not in the ethereal, transcendent way that can't be grasped by human understanding, but rather drawn down into the vessels and the lowest imaginable vessels of human understanding, where it is apparent even to the most closed-off mind how good HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, how good HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. Toiv Hashem kavod l'shmo. Toiv Hashem kavod l'shmo. That's not the pasuk, but it's the idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is ultimately being Megala his goodness at every single moment. And that mindset of Or HaOros, that mindset of the singular point of connectivity, that protects a person from falling prey to the klala of Bilam Harasha. The klalim of Bilam Harasha is the attempt to pinpoint that moment and allow that moment to take a person away from goodness. But when I attach myself to each and every moment and I prepare myself to enter into that place of Hein Am Levadad Yishkon, to enter into that place of Levado, into that mind place of Hisboididus, of being alone with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not an isolation that is sad, but a unification with HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the degree that I don't need anything else in the world. There's enough for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world for each and every creation, because each and every person is the center of their universe, and they're also periphery in everybody else's universe. And that recognition of transforming the kilim, which is the destructive tendency that Bilam HaRasha wanted to tap into, and transforming it into the secret of Amich Kulam Tzadikim. Chaf Lamed Mem is also Kulam, that each and every Yid is a tzaddik, and each and every Yid can enter into that place of Hein Am Levadod Yeshkon and understand that Bishvili Niver HaOlam, and that when I recognize the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm mamtik all things, and I'm mahapich that kilim, that destructive tendency to be mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu on myself. Osios of kilim, Chaf Lamed Mem, represent the backwards processing of the individual. The chaf is the kaved, the physiological liver-oriented functioning of the body, where it's rooted in its animalistic desires. The lamed, which is the lave, which is the heart of emotions, and then the mem, which is the moyach. So it's going from the lowest part of the self to the highest part of the self, where we place the highest part of ourselves at the end. That's where Bilam Harasha has the ability to attack the individual. When we find ourselves hopeless in our body and our heart, that's where we're going to naturally find ourselves hopeless in our mind. But the secret is that very often, times where it feels hopeless in my mind, it's really because I just feel hungry in my body, or my heart is not being tended to. As they say in the rooms, that a person, prior to losing their mind and getting angry over something, they should halt. Halt stands for checking in whether I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, because ultimately most things that feel like existential crises and breakdowns of the highest degree are ultimately just a little bit of hunger and not having slept well the night before. And therefore, when a person is seeing that it feels like life is falling apart in the lights of Kilim and that klala of Bilam, so a person has to recognize that sometimes it's just because the Chaf Lam and Mem, the process of the body, heart, and mind are in reversed order, and the body is leading the cart rather than the mind leading the body. And the tzaddikim talk about how we have to transform and reverse the order from kilim, which is from the lowest part to the highest part, where the highest part is now polluted with the lowest part, and we have to transform it in the secret of adra be'ipcha mistaber, the same way we're mahapich the klala of bilam into a bracha, the same way we're mahapich the bad dream and the negative experience into the seed of revelation, so too we're mahapich the very word itself, which is the curse of bilam, which is kilim, into the bracha itself. Why? Because when we transform the word kilim from the way that it's written to the opposite direction, it becomes mem lamed chaf, which is melech, which is when the mayach is first, then the lave is second, and the kaved is third. That's where we transform the difficulty of the body determining what the heart should feel and the heart determining what the mind should think, and we reverse it, and we allow the thinking of the mind to impose itself on the feeling of the heart, and then to express its healthy reigns over the body itself. And so we have this transformative power of entering into that mindset of what Bilam HaRasha wanted to, God forbid, do, and transforming it into the seed of blessing, where each and every moment we have the ability of recognizing Amich Kulam Tzadikim, Amich Kulam Tzadikim, that each and every one of us is a tzaddik, and each and every one of us has the ability to look at our experiences and see that I am Mordechai a tzaddik in the story of Megillas Esther, in every moment of my life, in spite of the fact that it might appear devoid of content, devoid of explicit meaning, devoid of ease, devoid of joy, God forbid, devoid of breath. Nevertheless, I have the ability through my histaklus as the Bal HaSipor, as the one who's looking back and interpreting my dream, which is the secret of dream interpretation, that it goes in accordance with the way that we look at it. It goes in accordance with the perspective that we have or that we're willing to receive, and we can validate our ability to transform that moment of Bilam saying kilim, where everything is destroyed because there's not enough strength within each and every person to grapple and cope with the difficulty. And we can transform it into the seed of blessing, into the seed of redemption, where mahapich the klala of Bilam into a bracha, where mahapich the choshech into the kalim of or, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is able to reveal himself in the dir b'tachtonim, which is our minds, which is our hearts, which is our body, the lowest place imaginable, where the concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so thick that it can't express itself in any thicker of a way, because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu's concealment were to thicken even a little bit more, then the gig would be up and HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be forced to reveal himself. The place in which we function is the lowest imaginable place place where there is the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light, yet there's an equal level of concealment, and it's specifically here that we have to prove the validity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, that it applies even down here, even by a person like ourselves. And when a person has that ability, we transform the klala of Bilam into a bracha, and we transform the kilim, that moment of destruction, into a secret of amich kulam tzadikim. Kulam tzadikim. Hein am levadod yishkon. Each and every person has the ability to be mechaber themselves to the yichud amiti by connecting ourselves to those who go before us and to our teachers and our mentors and our tzadikim and our best selves, by believing enough in the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be able to say that amich kulam tzadikim, to transform that kilim, that destroy them of Bilam, into a secret of each and every person is enough. And I'm enough to be mamtik all the dinim, and I'm enough to fix everything. And each and every person has the responsibility of being mahapich the klala of Bilam into a bracha, and being mahapich the kalim of difficulty into the light of emuna. And in that way, we come to transform the secret of Bilam, saying there's a moment, a rega ba'apol chaim b'rtzono, that if a person is only serving Hashem for a moment, that's where I'm going to curse them, specifically in the momentary nature of their hisayrus. Because what Bilam wants to say is that there's a separation between good and bad, and therefore, if you can't hold on to your moichin for more than a moment, and you can't connect more to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for more than a moment, then memela, you're seen as bad. And memela, if it doesn't last forever, then it's seen as not real. That's why Bilam was able to tap into that notion of a rega. Most of us walk around feeling all I can do is do it right for a rega, for a moment, one moment at a time, one day at a time. And as a result of that, I lose hope in myself. I lose sight of my inner goodness. And that's the secret of Rega being the Rosh Tevos of Reishis Goyim Amalek. That's where Amalek attacks us, specifically in that sense of all you did was a momentary thing, but it's not real. But the secret of Kedusha is the fact that every Rega is Megala, the Emes La'amiso, and each moment when we're engaged with the goodness that is real in the heart of ourselves, we're revealing the true essence of ourselves. And any moment where we're not engaged in the essential good, that's inessential, that's covered over, that's a difficult thing that needs to be fixed, but it's not indicative of what the true source of the light of a yid is. The light of a yid is that is perpetually in a desiring state to connect to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'tachlis habitul, and the secret of, in the secret of nafshi choilas avasecha, nafshi choilas avasecha. And when a person comes to believe in that secret of one moment in Avodas Hashem is enough to bring Mashiach, then we come to learn the secret of one moment at a time. One moment at a time is not just a prescription given over to someone who's too sick to do something for more than one moment at a time. That's a vada true in the beginning. In the beginning of any process, it appears that to do something for 2 moments at a time would be too much, and therefore all I can do is convince myself that I can do 1 moment at a time. But slowly but surely, once a person gets the hang of a life of recovery, a life of spirituality, a life of connection, a life of attachment, a life of goodness, a life of moyach shalit ala leiv, a life of allowing my mind to dictate how my heart and my body are going to react to this world, rather than my body and my heart imposing themselves upon the mind, every moment of that experience is nitzchias. Every moment of that experience is nitzchias, and that's why Parshas Bilam and Balak was going to be brought into Kriyat Shema, because the fundamental recognition of what Bilam was trying to do is the opposite of what Kriyat Shema is. They wanted to put this parsha in Kriyat Shema. Kriyat Shema is the time where we testify to the unity of all things, in spite of the fact that there's a Hashem and an Elokim in our experiences, 2 separate ways that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself, Toiv HaMeitav and Dayan Emes. The secret of Hashem Echad is being Moiser Nefesh, is throwing away my Moichin and believing L'mala Mitam V'das, above any rational cause, simply because I've chosen it like a stubborn child, to believe in the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the ultimate unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no matter what. It's an edus. I'm testifying to something that might not necessarily be present in front of my eyes, but nevertheless, the testimony is an elongated ayin and an elongated dalid of the shin of Shema and the ayin of Shema and the dalit of Echad, which is aid, which is an aidus, that I'm testifying to the goodness and the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the secret of the Parsha of Bilam. When I have the ability to testify to everything that's going on in my life, that ultimately there's a goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu there, then I begin to enter into the gates of Emunah, and I begin to enter into the place where I can find HaKadosh Baruch Hu wherever I find myself. Every moment can be transformed into a moment of Hispoidedus. Heim am levadod yishkon. And when a Yid is in a process of Hispoidedus, and when a Yid uses the Lashon well, and when a Yid rectifies their speech, and the opposite of the speech of Bilam and the opposite of the speech of Balak through the midos of Avram Avinu, which is the opposite of the midos of Bilam, that Avram is bittul, it's shiflus, it's goim lechasadim, it's empathy, it's compassion, it's a sense of self that is aware of its deficiency, not because I'm bad or because I've done something wrong, but because Hashem is the only thing that's perfect. In that place, we can transform our language. We can transform the power of our language. And one word of Hispoidedus, and Hein An Levadoid Yishkon, and I tap into HaKadosh Baruch Hu in that solitude place of being fundamentally connected to Him and Him alone, where nothing else exists in the entirety of the world. And every word of speech goes directly to that innermost place, to that cella at the heart of the individual, of talking to the stone, talking to that place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals Himself. At that point, the kilim, the desire for destruction, is nimtak, it's sweetened, and it reveals Amir Kulam Sadikim, and we rectify everything, and we become melech to our own lives, and we own the malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we reveal the malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we reveal the possibility of doing the next right thing, and transforming the negative dreams into the positive dreams, and transforming the anxiety into a place of faith, and the difficulty into a place of ease, and the chaos into a place of calmness, and the darkness into a place of light, and all of the gullus into the seed of Geula, and Be'ezras Hashem to be zocha to the transformation of the negative, to reveal that within the negative itself there's a light, and to move forward from the process of iskafia, which is repressing the negativity, towards ishafcha, which is revealing from within the negativity itself the lights of clarity, the lights of unity that are so big that they contain disunity themselves, and to look back on our lives and our stories in a new way, to look back on our life without regret. Yes, change, yes, understanding, yes, sympathy, empathy to our sick selves, or the sick soul, or the elements of ourselves that we didn't like, or that were unworthy, or that were not how we wanted to function, but not with eyes of separation, not with eyes of saying that wasn't me, that wasn't real, that was a place where Hashem was empty, but rather that place was also saturated with the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because when we come back to ourselves again, and we come to find the light of unity in our lives, that light of unity will be so much more intense, and so much more powerful, and so much greater, when we realize that this unity is so powerful that it was also in the places that I thought it wasn't, and that the Emunah Kolzos, and that Emunah was always there. And in this way, we carry ourselves, the good days and the bad days, the Yemei Tov and Yemei Ra, and we're mahapich them into Yomim Al Yemei Melech Toisif Shnoisav B'chol Davador, and we allow Moshe Rabbeinu, our das, to be mevatel the das of Klipa, to get rid of the bilbul, to get rid of the thinking I'm good or I'm bad, as if there's a time where the inherent point of the neshama is not ultimately good, and I enter into that place of realizing that I am inherently good, that sometimes finds itself expressing itself in ways that are the opposite of good, but not that I am negative, or that I have something that's no good within me, God forbid. That's the secret of Hein Am Levadod Yishkon, Hein B'lashin Yevanis is Echad, meaning to say that even in the foreign languages, even in the times where a person doesn't feel connected to Lashon HaKodesh, where a person doesn't feel connected to the inherent goodness, and where it feels separate, where it's the Lashon of the Amim, where it's the 70 languages of the nations of the world, which talk in ways of separation, which talk in ways of attack, which talks in ways of destruction. Nevertheless, we take those languages and we're matargim them, and it's Hein An Levadoid Yishkon. Hein B'lashin Yevanis is Achas, meaning we take the nations of the world and their language, and we reveal the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu from that place, and that's the secret of Ma Toivu Alecha Yaakov Mishkan Osecha Yisrael. Yaakov and Yisrael represent two stages of an individual's experience. Yaakov fights with the Malach. Yaakov fights with the struggle. Yaakov fights with the Choshech. But when we overcome that Choshech and we enter into that place of Yisrael, and we enter into that place of, because Sarisem Elokim B'chai, that I've been able to wrestle with God Kavyachal and reveal the goodness that's inherent even within the apparent negativity, and the secret of the negative angel will say Amen in against its will, which takes place with Yaakov in that place, and especially there where Yaakov is shalem, but he walks away deficient. That process of Yaakov is the recognition that I'm whole and I'm deficient at once. Had Yaakov walked away from that encounter with negativity, not limping, then God forbid a human being would have thought that they could undo difficulty in their lives. The secret of Yaakov Avinu limping away is that there will always be an element of difficulty and a lack of shleimus, but nevertheless that needs to be integrated into the entire narrative structure, which gives room for the good and the bad to be seen through the lens of an ultimate goodness that is refined enough and mature enough to make room for what was apparently the opposite of some childish perspective of good. And that's why by the other Avos, when Avram's name changed from Avram to Avraham, we don't call him Avram anymore. And by Yaakov, when Yaakov's name was changed to Yisrael, it's not that we don't call him Yaakov anymore, because Yaakov is the secret of the unification of the Katnus and the Godless, the up and the down, and the revelation that all of those things are serving towards the unified process of revealing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's oneness in the world of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Va'ed. And that's why it's specifically the bracha that comes out of the mouth of the Nachash, the bracha that comes out of Galus itself, is the Ma Toivu Alecha Yaakov Mishkan Osecha Yisrael. How good is Yaakov, how good is the light of Yaakov, and how wondrous is the light of Yisrael. Both of them reveal together, the light and the dark, both reveal the unified light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in that way, we're mevatel the klipa of Bilam and Amalek, we're mevatel Balak, we're mevatel all of the enemies of Klal Yisrael. We get rid of all of the lashon hara that's said on Klal Yisrael, all of the lashon hara that we say about ourselves, to ourselves, about ourselves, all of the negative thinking and the negative processes, and we uncover the secret of goodness that rests at the heart of each and every one of us, of amich kulam sadikim, and the goodness that I have in myself in this moment, that I am right here, right now, and I am okay. And from that place, we learn to build the Mishkan, and we learn to build the Beis HaMikdash, and we learn to give the brachos of transforming the lowest parts of Klal Yisrael into the most beautiful diamonds. As my Rebbe Rav Moshe Weinberger Shlita was talking about this week, that each and every yid is a diamond. Each and every yid is a world unto themselves. Amich kulam sadikim. Amich kulam sadikim. Harofei l'shvurei levu machabesh latzvoisam noisen l'kulam shemos yikra. So the pasuk says that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu refines those broken-hearted individuals, those people who find themselves stuck between goodness and concealment, those people who are falling and standing, never feeling that they're in the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And how does that happen? This is a teaching from Rosenfeld. How does that happen? How does HaKadosh Baruch Hu heal and mend the broken heart that doesn't feel good enough, that doesn't feel valuable, that doesn't feel like Amech Kulam Tzadikim, and it gets stuck in that curse of Bilam of Kilim? So it's Noisen Kochavim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu places stars. Kulam l'shemos nikra, and each and every one gets a name. Each and every one gets a name. The healing process of a person who feels that they're insignificant is revealing to them that they are a world into themselves. They have a name, they have a purpose, they have a tachlis, and they are the ultimate tachlis of all of existence, the opposite of Bilam Harasha. Bilam Harasha wanted to say there's good and there's bad. There's Yidden who are good and there's Yidden who are bad. The secret of Kulam is the secret of Amich Kulam Tzadikim, and that's the secret of the Kulam Shemos Yikra, that each and every person gets a name, the opposite of what Bilam Harasha wanted to do, which was pretend that there's a moment in a Yid's consciousness that is not fundamentally capable of being revealed to be the Kodesh HaKadoshim of their lives. And that's the secret of Matoivu Alach Yaakov Mishkanis. Matoivu Alach Yaakov Mishkanesecha Yisrael Va'ani Berov Chastecha Ava Besecha Ashtacha Velhecha Kachecha Berov Chastecha, seeing Chastecha in everything, whether it's Chayk HaToiv Lahetiv or whether it's Toiv Hanira Ba'nigla Lamata Me'asar Tfachim. We believe in the Chesed Deboyim Kol Yuma, and the secret of Olam Chesed Yibana, and that the entire process is a binyan of Chesed, and that everything that feels separate from that, it just means that that light hasn't been revealed yet. And Be'ezras Hashem, we should be zoicha to be mamtik the klala of Bilam Harasha in our own minds, and to reveal the bracha within it, and to transform the darkness into the good, and allow the jungle to be transformed into a garden, and allow the gullus itself to be transformed into the very seed of Geula. Be'ezras Hashem.